Father, come to you this morning with a prayer of thanksgiving. I pray for my spirit to be void of my ego and filled with you, Heavenly Father, that discernment and wisdom flow through me, that my ego is on vacation during this time as we unpack and explore divine law, jurisdiction of knowing who we are as a child of God, where we take standing on your earth and in your water and in the ether with the elements that you created, fire and wind, air, water, the bounty that you've given us, the abundance from Pachamama, from the Garden of Eden, from Mother Nature. We thank you for all these things. And as we step into our roles as stewards in right alignment with you, with respect to these things, I just pray your blessing upon our endeavors, our conversation, and our distinctions. Amen, aho, and may it be so. And so, talking about this chess strategy of the kingdom of stewarding in heaven on earth now, in God's creation, and utilizing the game of chess to make this a fun conversation and a fun way to go about looking at how the Spirit might empower you to play the game of life in a new way. Play the game of life as a child of God, playing in the kingdom that God has blessed you with. This is the earth. So going back in time to that book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, and using the Garden of Eden as a representation of the way God intended it to be for us, the way he created the earth in his nature for us, his children, to play in. We take these principles of playing the game of chess, which is a game about a kingdom, that's the board, with a king, that's going to be God in this representation, and then the queen, which is God's church. And then we use the bishop, which is in service to the church, where the people of God run about the kingdom. And we use the castle or the rook as a representation of embodying sacred stewardship, protection over the kingdom. That castle, that lighthouse is placed on the corners of the board. And from that perspective, you can see how the representation is looking out for danger, keeping things safe in the kingdom. So I'm making all these connections between the game of chess and divine law principles, a viewpoint, a perspective, a bird's eye view of a way to look at God's laws, as opposed to the program of the man-made law system, statutory law, civil rules of procedure, if you will. Okay, and so from that perspective, we can also draw on the chess analogy. So you have the black chess pieces, and we're going to use those to represent the dark entities. So the statutory world. Okay, this is that dark, heavy energy, and why? Because it's an illusion, it's a trick on the real light law, God's law, so that we're going to use the white chess pieces to represent uh, the heavenly player, and then the dark opponent, the black chess pieces and the white chess pieces. Okay, and so uh, the dark black chess pieces, we're gonna draw in that their energy is driven more by Black's law. If you're familiar with this, this is distinction, a dictionary about the size of a telephone. The old telephone books, had, I don't know, I don't know. I wonder how many pages. I could Google that, I'm sure, but it's thicker than a Bible. It's thicker than most Bibles. This Black's Law book, filled with definitions that the matrix or Pharaoh, the public system, operates under. It's what informs statutory law, Black's Law dictionary. And it has all kinds of distinctions and terms for admiralty law, for instance, things that we use without consciousness because we're just using a program that was given to us, and then it's taught to us in our public schools, and it's compounded upon by the universities where we pay top dollar for the programming and an understanding of the energy that flows through these words, which creates our statutory law, which creates our licenses, which creates the code of man-made law stacked on top of God's law of love, the pure, white, clean, simple law of love. Do no harm to your neighbor sums up love God with your whole heart and all of your energy. And when you're doing that, of course, you couldn't harm your neighbor because you would know what love is. If you're loving God with your whole heart, you're going to receive God's love back with your whole heart. And so you can cause no harm to your neighbors. That's the sum of God's law. And then the man-made law tries to distinguish that into actions and leave void the spirit of that pure essence of love and make it about rules and about following those laws instead. So that's the dark entity uh, uh, purpose and formation and attack from that team. Okay, from the statutory entity world, the dark entities that play on the black side. And then with the white chess pieces, we're going to think of the motivating factor, the energy that flows through them comes from the spirit of the living God. And so the representation of this would be Yeshua and how he walked on the earth as an example of what the spirit, the pure spirit of the living God looks like in a man form, in a human body. And so his essence is not so much attack, that's statutory, it's fear-based on the black side. It's more about just standing in your presence and taking dominion, taking territory over the kingdom for the purposes of enjoying God's purpose and intention for us on this earth, which is to be at peace through the modality of love, where we sit in joy and we sit in abundance, and there's more than enough for everyone, and there's just blessings everywhere. Heaven on earth now is a real thing. And when you step into the divine law jurisdiction, when you step into God's law and you exit the Black's law, that's when you find heaven. When you free yourself from the program and the rule set of slave mentality, dark energy, fictitious organizations that are pretending to be about profit, Profit, instead of prophetic, God's. So the daily bread abundance comes from God, not from man-made system. It doesn't come from trying to take from your brother, the way that business coaching and business schools and economics work, right? There's not enough for everyone. And so you take and someone else loses. That's Black's law. God's law, the law of abundance, the law of love, is there's way more than enough for everyone. Giving and receiving is one and the same. The more you give, the more you receive. You can't give what you don't receive. You can't receive what you haven't given. This is how God's economy works. The story told deeper in permaculture principles, God's natural law. Fruit falls from a tree, dies, and then reproduces not just more fruit, but a whole new tree that produces a whole ton more fruit. That's abundance. That's God's principles. That's how his laws work. And they're not based on fear, they're based on abundance. So the prophet under God's law is spelled different. Prophetic, P-H-R-O-T, I think. I don't, you know, yeah, you got to look that up, but you get the essence of what I'm speaking about. It's not profit, the trick of the languages, the way that the matrix works. It's an illusion. It's not profit, where you take from another and gain. It's prophetic, where you talk about God's natural law, God's rules, God's nature, and that brings abundance. A prophetic word brings abundance in ways that profit, only pretends to create. And this is the illusion. This is just one of so many illusions that are found by Black's laws definitions, and how that creates the words that we use and creates the worlds that we operate under, the jurisdiction we put ourselves under. So when you're using dark statutory entities and organizations, uh, for creating businesses, you've signed up for that system. You've signed up to play by the Black Law rule book. We don't know we're doing this, but it's just this is how the world works when you're on the black team. When you're on the white team, you get to play chess a little differently. And you're coming from a different mindset. You're coming from a different perspective. And uh, eh, eh, when you're playing with God's light flowing through you, there's more than enough for everyone and everybody wins, right? So the players on the black team, when they lose, those bad losers in a game, how they just wrecks their day, the football fans, they get so upset that their whole, week is ruined because their team lost a game. That energy, that's the black law. That's on the black side. That's this fear mentality, not enough, lack, all of that energy flows there. From the white, it's recognized for what it is. It's children of God playing in the kingdom, having fun with the abundance that God has given us. These are the basic principles what I'm speaking to now, trying to use this chess game analogy to express the program that we've been indoctrinated by the media, the news programs, the television programs, the TV guide, the programming that boob tube thing did to our brains growing up when this was all coming out uh, just less than 100 years ago, right? Like this is the program we're experiencing now, that program having run for many, many, many years. And then now it's moved into social media and the screens in a different format. But if you're not careful when you're looking at those screens, that programming is all over the place. It's available and it's subconscious, and it's being shared with us. Sometimes we don't have a clue. We don't know. We've assigned all of our rights away to for-profit corporations like Google and Apple, and all of our tech needs, all the screens, all the devices, our phone companies, right? We've signed away our rights on those little buttons that you click and say, hey, yeah, you can study my facial expression. You can sell my nose twitch that, right? Every time before I make a big purchase, my face does this thing. And when you see that come on, I'm in a buyer's mode, and that's something that you can profit from. So you can sell that to somebody else so that they can send me an ad at just the right time, right? So that's what for-profit companies end up doing to make profit. They're stealing your life force energy. They're studying you because we are the currency. We are the resource, our spirit, the spirit of God flowing through us. That's not recognized by the black team. That's only seen on the white team. But are you starting to be able to feel the analogies that I'm speaking to? And they're prophetic, they're symbolic, they're metaphors that have life. That the Spirit of God has shown these things to me over the years of my having been deeply involved in the licensed statutory world as a licensed attorney, and now having set my mind free from those vows and the promises and the contracts you make when you are on the way to getting a law license, the programming that you pay dearly for 3 years of law school, and then working with the guys in the black robes as a judge's assistant, and the training of that program that they indoctrinate to wrap it up in your identity so that it's so difficult to separate from that it becomes, it seems to me, nearly impossible. And I know it's not impossible because I've done it, but I've still yet to meet but just a handful of licensed attorneys who see what I see when we start to talk about the things. Or I can't say that they don't see it, but it's as if they're not able to accept it. I don't know. It's kind of like COVID. Some people just couldn't understand that actually breathing air was better for you than breathing through fungus-filled masks and holding your air and your toxins right in front of your face. Like, I don't know how people can miss such basic common sense ideas, but they do. And that's because of the programming. They were listening to their licensed professionals. The doctors, the medical community just carte blanche jumped on the bandwagon that somehow what common sense should inform everybody was not common sense, and most of the world appeared to follow the programmed, licensed thinking. And so, what we're talking about here is a fun way to unpack and unlock that program. Or, and again, my experience has been most of the people who are listening to me talk right now have already seen what I'm sharing. I'm just trying to make light of it and fun of it in a way that expresses it without bringing the energy of somehow it's wrong to be on the black team. I mean, this is the world we were born into. We were born into an illusion, and we're playing a game. We were playing the game on the black team. If you're hearing about this for the first time, I'm inviting you to play on the white team. It's a lot more fun when you understand all this what I'm talking about. It raises your vibrational frequency, and as you connect to the spirit of God in a new way that you can't do when you're operating under man-made law, when you've given the rights to the system to control you as if you're a slave, like you're a child of God under Pharaoh's rule. This is the story that the Bible tells us all about right from the get go, right in the beginning. It's not a story about something that happened 2,000 years ago only. It's about what's happening right now in the world, which is that the children of God are being uh, squished under the thumb of Pharaoh. And Pharaoh is the public system, the black law players who are running the Black's Law theory in whatever language. Again, it's not about this being an English modality only. This is the way that the world has worked, as told in the story 2,000 years ago when Pharaoh, which just called the government, is enslaving God's children. And in the Bible, they called him slave and slave master, right? The Pharaoh was the slave master, and the slaves were the children of God, the Jews, uh, uh, the Hebrews, and it's my understanding that Pharaoh was using these slaves to build his kingdom and build huge structures and manual labor and then and I think they gave him some housing, they gave him some food, unless they really there was a time in the story there when Moses was trying to bring them out from underneath the government control that the that Pharaoh cracked down even harder. So that's what's happening right now. That's what we're experiencing with the 15-minute smart cities, right? Pharaoh, the government, is cracking down harder on God's children, trying to enslave them, keep them feeding the system that feeds Pharaoh, keeps the government bureaucracy alive. The Sadducees and the Pharisees of today are the Republicans and the Democrats and the so-called spiritual leaders, the mega church leaders who are still teaching the indoctrination of religion, religiosity, dogmatic following of the rules, as opposed to how the Spirit of God truly flows through us as described in the Bible, but misinterpreted by many uh, uh, devotional schools who are teaching devoid of the true spiritual essence of some of the words on the page. This is how they get us with the illusion. This is how they get us. That's what Black's Law is. It's like it has words and they look good and they create the world that the people live in and that they subject themselves to. but it's a trick. You're using words that are disempowering, not empowering you. When you move on to the white team and you're playing for the right side, when you're playing with God and God's spirit is flowing through you instead of the dark entity energy spirit flowing, you get access to a new way of being in a new world that you get to create with your words. This is the law of love. It does not cause harm to any of your neighbors, and that's what protects you. Just not causing harm to your neighbors. Not a bunch of man-made laws and licenses and restrictions and ordinances and statutory nonsense. Some of those things do, for sure. Whenever that's the case, we comply. But when they're in juxtaposition, when they're opposed to the law of love and they are about making profit, which is taking from our family and friends, from the other children of God, and we call them clients and we call them customers, and we're just trying to take profit from them. That's a deception. That's an illusion made to look good. Oh, well, we're giving a valuable service. Yeah, but in the world of the matrix, you can't just give valuable service. You have to make profit. You have to make this, you have to take money from your friend. That's what that's, look up the code, look up the taxes, how the CPAs categorize all these things through that in that horrible license, the CPA license, Certified Public Accountant, which means first thing, report everything to the IRC. According to the Internal Revenue Code, the IRC is another dictionary, 2 dictionaries thick code, man-made statutory nonsense that Jesus spoke a lot about. And it's been misinterpreted, by the way. Jesus didn't pay taxes. He paid a temple tax, but he did not pay income tax. He did not pay taxes on the things that people gave to him. And he wasn't in business in the traditional sense of the word. He was serving his brothers and sisters. And when you're doing that, even man-made law says that that's not non-profit. And isn't that funny? So when you're actually doing God's work, you're giving service. This is what he calls us to do, serve our brothers and our sisters. Just serve your brothers and your sisters. Live in harmony. Share your abundance with your brothers and your sisters. And if they're all doing the same thing, you're living in harmony. That's profit. But a nonprofit, a benevolent statutory organization, see how they twisted the code and they made the wrong thing seem right and the right thing seem wrong? Anyway, this is rife all over the code. This is what they do. They're tricks of the words. And all we're doing is unprogramming the mind from that trick and seeing the light and stepping into the whole thing with a new energy, with a new way of creating the world we live in. And what I mean by create, well, in the beginning was the word. This was God's word. We were made in his likeness and his image. And the word spoke, the word was spoken and created all that exists. And we're made in that image. That's what we all have the opportunity to do. And in the school system has messed up our minds by having us focus on the spelling of words and spelling bees being a super high accomplishment in the many cultures. And yet, for each word that we spell one way, there's on average in the Webster Dictionary 3 definitions. And then you got all the words that are spelled differently, but sound the same and have completely different meanings, right? So there's all the, and then there's the focus on the spelling of a word without even paying attention to the intention or the understanding or the definition of the word. So that, again, like they did with us in math, they had us focus on the wrong type of math and lose sight of what's truly important about being stewards in God's kingdom and focusing on abundance principles. We focus on, long form division and carrying, like not stuff that people don't do on the everyday. They confuse us so that we don't have an interest in really studying the things about math that make sense and they're going to bring abundance to us. This is what our public schools do. Same thing with geometry. They don't focus on divine patterns that are the building blocks for atomics and atoms, they make us focus on all that weird stuff instead of telling us about Merkabas and triangles at a deeper level and the energy that comes from them, which is obvious given those gigantic structures that ancient civilizations had built without the technology we have today, and we still can't figure it out. But they don't have us look at those things. They confuse our minds as children so that we stop studying God's laws, God's principles, permaculture. They don't teach you much about farming in the schools either. How to grow your own food. No, you got to rely upon for-profit organizations. So again, just linking all the bits and pieces between the black team and the white team and the way that Yeshua walked the earth, the way that he said the kingdom of heaven is here now, and it's only in your mind that makes the difference. So he didn't leave the world. He was an ambassador passing through it. This is what he calls us, representing another kingdom. That's the heavenly kingdom, God's playground. And it's here too, but it's found in the spiritual realm. It's in the invisible world. And when you play on the white chess team, you exit just playing like the black team does in this. Well, there's actually spiritual elements on that team too, but they're in the shadow world. They're dark. They're not of the light. They're not coming from love. They're coming from greed. It's tied to profit, PROFIT, being the primary driver, as opposed to service, light work, light workers. You hear all these words, these connector things that we've heard in the ethers. You can see where they point to when you start distinguishing the difference between Black's law and God's law, the law of love. You can start to see more and more connections on how we create our own world by stop using the matrix Black's law definition terms, dictionary terms, and we start using words that are rooted in love and connection and service to our brothers and our sisters. We're not taking from our brothers and sisters. We're not taking money from them. We're giving them immense value. What they're going to receive from us is far more than what they give us in the form of money. That's not profit. That's a fair exchange. And why would we need to share this with Pharaoh, who's corrupt and doing things we don't approve? We don't, unless we use their words. And then we voluntarily keep ourselves locked in that slavery system where a quarter of your year or half of your year of your spiritual energy is going to feed Pharaoh, feed the slave master. That's Black's law. The law of love, the law of light allows you to be the steward of God's natural resources, not assets, term from Black's law, but resources of your heavenly Father that he's entrusted to you. And he doesn't want you sharing it with Pharaoh. He told Pharaoh, well, actually, God hardened Pharaoh's heart not to let his children go because his children didn't appreciate the principles I'm talking about. They wanted to stay slaves. They wanted to stay stuck in Babylon instead of setting themselves free. It took them 40 years to take a very short journey out of Babylon, out of the slave mentality, and into the new earth. It was just their perception and realizing that God is the supreme law, not man-made law, not the matrix nonsense. Yeshua said, "Woe to you, Pharisees and Sadducees, you corrupted my Father's law of love and stacked your laws on top and made them more important." This is today's journey, today's message, today's reality, not just 2,000 years ago. To the children of God, I pray you wake up, and when you do, come play with me. I've been studying these things for a few years, and I've got some tricks and some moves on the chessboard that others haven't yet experienced. I love to share them with people who walk in the light and play on the white side. So, blessings from Bradley, from Prosperous Legacy Advisors. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you all again soon.